Hey everyone, Sarah here. Rewind Justice brings you revenge stories that will blow your mind. If you're ready, hit subscribe and let's go.
My name is Rebecca Thompson, and for 27 years, I'd been the family disappointment. Not because I failed, because I succeeded quietly. My father, Richard Thompson, built Thompson Manufacturing from the ground up. Started in 1987 with a small machine shop, grew it into a mid-sized industrial parts supplier with 73 employees and $12 million in annual revenue. He loved telling that story. At every holiday, every family gathering, every chance he got. Built it with my own two hands, he'd say, chest puffed out. No handouts. No trust fund. Just hard work and vision. My older brother Marcus became VP of Operations at 25. My sister Caroline joined as Director of Sales at 23. Both got company cars, stock options, corner offices with their names on brass plates. I got a different message. Business isn't for everyone, Rebecca. Dad told me when I graduated college with a finance degree. Maybe find something more suitable. Administrative work. Teaching. Something safe. Translation: you're not good enough for the family legacy. So I took a job at a small investment firm in the city. Entry-level analyst position. $52,000 a year. Shared apartment with 2 roommates. Nothing glamorous. And I kept my head down and learned. I studied under Margaret Chin, one of the sharpest portfolio managers in the Midwest. She saw something in me that my family never did. Taught me how to read balance sheets like novels, spot undervalued assets, structure deals that protected principals while maximizing returns. Finance is psychology, Margaret told me. Numbers tell you what happened. Human behavior tells you what's coming next. 3 years in, I made my first major investment recommendation. A struggling logistics company that everyone else had written off. I saw their core assets were undervalued by 40% and their debt was fixable. We bought in. Restructured their operations. Sold 18 months later for 340% return. Margaret made me junior partner at 26. At 27, I managed a portfolio worth $89 million. And nobody in my family knew. Because they never asked what I actually did. They just assumed I was doing office work, or helping with paperwork, or whatever vague thing they imagined. At family dinners, Dad would talk about Thompson Manufacturing's quarterly performance. Marcus would brag about new equipment purchases. Caroline would discuss sales projections. I'd sit quietly and eat my mashed potatoes. Rebecca, you're so quiet, Mom would say. Don't you have anything interesting to share? Work's been good, I'd reply. That's nice, dear. And the conversation would move on. The irony was suffocating. Because for the past 14 months, I'd been intimately familiar with every aspect of Thompson Manufacturing's finances. Not because Dad shared them with me. Because I was personally guaranteeing their entire operational credit line. It started in September 2022. I was having lunch with James Morrison, the senior VP at Midwest Commercial Banking. We'd worked together on several deals. Good relationship. Mutual respect. I need advice off the record, James said, looking uncomfortable. Client confidentiality, but I know your last name is Thompson. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Thompson Manufacturing. Your father's company. They're in trouble, Rebecca. My stomach tightened. What kind of trouble? Cash flow crisis. They've maxed their existing credit facilities. Vendor payments are 60 days overdue. Payroll almost bounced last month. Richard's been personally guaranteeing everything, but he's tapped out. His house, his retirement accounts, he's pledged it all. How bad? James pulled out his phone, showed me numbers that made my chest hurt. Thompson Manufacturing needed $6.2 million in revolving credit to survive the next 18 months. They had 3 major contracts in the pipeline that would stabilize everything, but those wouldn't pay out for 12 to 14 months. Without that bridge financing, the company would fold within 90 days. 73 employees out of work. Dad's entire legacy gone. Mom's retirement vaporized. Marcus and Caroline unemployed. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because the bank can't approve this, James said quietly. Richard's debt-to-income ratio is critical. His personal credit is maxed. We can't justify the risk to our board. So what are you asking? You manage $89 million in assets, Rebecca. You have the kind of balance sheet that could guarantee this credit line. If you were willing to personally secure the loan, we could approve it. Thompson Manufacturing survives. Your family keeps their livelihood. I sat back. Processing. Would my father know? Not unless you want him to. We can structure this as an anonymous third-party guarantee. Very common in commercial lending. Richard would just know that someone with substantial assets agreed to back his company. I thought about all those dinners. All those dismissive comments. All those years of being invisible. Give me 48 hours, I said. I spent that weekend reviewing Thompson Manufacturing's complete financials. James sent everything under strict confidentiality. The company wasn't dying because of bad management. It was dying because of bad timing. Dad had made smart expansion moves, but several customers had delayed major orders due to supply chain issues. Cash got tight. Then tighter. The fundamentals were solid. The contracts in the pipeline were real. If they could bridge this gap, they'd not only survive, they'd be positioned for significant growth. From a pure investment perspective, it was actually a good risk. From an emotional perspective, it was complicated. But I made my decision based on the numbers, not the feelings. Monday morning, I called James. Structure the guarantee. I'll personally secure the full $6.2 million credit line. But 2 conditions. My name stays completely confidential, and if Thompson Manufacturing defaults, I have first rights to all company assets. Done. And James? My father cannot know it's me. Ever. Unless I choose to tell him. Understood. 3 weeks later, Thompson Manufacturing's cash crisis mysteriously resolved. Dad received approval for a revolving credit line that gave him exactly the breathing room he needed. At Thanksgiving 2022, he raised his wine glass. Big news, everyone. The bank finally recognized what this company is worth. Approved our expansion financing. Thompson Manufacturing is secure for the next decade. Everyone cheered. I smiled and sipped my water. Because I'd just bet $6.2 million that my family's business wouldn't fail. Not because they deserved my help. Because 73 employees and their families deserved stability. Over the next year, my career accelerated. I closed a major acquisition for a client that made national business news. Forbes featured our firm in a piece about emerging investment strategies. Margaret promoted me to senior partner. My personal portfolio grew to $127 million under management. I bought a condo downtown. Started driving a Tesla. Traveled to Singapore for a conference. Spoke on a panel about millennial investment trends. And my family noticed none of it. Because I never posted on social media. Never brought it up at dinners. Never corrected their assumptions. Still doing office work? Dad would ask occasionally. Something like that. Well, it pays the bills, I suppose. Meanwhile, Thompson Manufacturing used my guaranteed credit line to stabilize operations, fulfill those major contracts, and expand into 2 new markets. Revenue grew to $18 million. They hired 20 more employees. Dad gave himself a $85,000 bonus and bought a new BMW. At Christmas 2023, he gathered everyone in the living room. I want to announce something important, he said, standing by the fireplace like a CEO addressing shareholders. Thompson Manufacturing just had its best year ever. $18 million in revenue. 37% profit growth. And it's all because of the foundation I built. The vision I had. The risks I took. Everyone applauded. Marcus raised his glass. To Dad. A real entrepreneur. To real entrepreneurs, Caroline echoed. They all drank. I smiled politely from the corner of the couch. Mom looked at me. Rebecca, dear, you must be so proud of your father. Very proud, I said. Maybe someday you'll find something you're passionate about too. Like your father found manufacturing. Maybe, I replied. What I didn't say, I'm passionate about finance. I manage more money before 9 a.m. than Dad's company generates in annual revenue. I'm literally the reason his business still exists. But that's not a conversation you have at Christmas. Thanksgiving 2024 was held at my parents' house as always. 37 relatives. 3 tables. Mom's famous turkey. Dad's even more famous ego. I arrived at 2 p.m. wearing jeans and a casual sweater. My sister Caroline was already there in a designer dress, showing off photos of her recent vacation to Tuscany. Company paid incentive trip, she bragged. Top sales performers only. Congratulations, I said genuinely. She looked me up and down. Still shopping at, where do you shop? Target. Sometimes. She laughed and walked away. Dinner started at 4 p.m. Dad sat at the head of the table naturally. Marcus to his right, Caroline to his left. I was seated at the far end between my teenage cousins who spent the entire meal on their phones. Halfway through the meal, Uncle Frank asked Dad about business. And Dad launched into his favorite topic. Thompson Manufacturing is crushing it, he declared, gesturing with his fork. We just landed a $4.2 million contract with Anderson Industrial. Biggest deal in company history. And I negotiated the whole thing myself. That's incredible, Richard, Aunt Diane said. That's what vision looks like, Dad continued. That's what happens when you build something real. When you contribute actual value to the world. He looked down the table. Made eye contact with me. Not everyone has that capability, of course. Some people are just different. They contribute in other ways. My cousin Emma whispered to her brother. Is he talking about Rebecca? Obviously, her brother whispered back. I kept eating my turkey. Dad wasn't done. I've always believed that success comes from hard work. From taking risks. From building something with your own hands. He paused for dramatic effect. Some people take the safe route. The easy path. And that's fine. The world needs administrative workers too. Caroline nodded. Absolutely. Marcus added, not everyone has entrepreneurial DNA. Mom reached over and patted my hand. Rebecca works very hard at her office job, Richard. Don't be dismissive. I'm not being dismissive, Dad said. I'm being honest. Look around this table. Marcus runs operations for a $18 million company. Caroline manages a sales team. They contribute. They build. They create value. He looked at me again. Rebecca does office work. Answers phones or files papers or whatever it is she does. And that's fine. It's honest work. But let's not pretend it's the same as building a business. Creating jobs. Making an actual impact. The table went quiet. Uncle Frank cleared his throat. Richard, I'm sure Rebecca. I'm not saying anything cruel, Dad interrupted. I'm stating facts. Some people contribute to the family legacy. And there's no shame in that. We can't all be entrepreneurs. He raised his wine glass. To the real contributors. To the people who build things. Half the table raised their glasses awkwardly. I sat there fork in hand and did the math in my head. Thompson Manufacturing's $4.2 million contract with Anderson Industrial, the one Dad was so proud of, was only possible because of the working capital provided by the credit line I was personally guaranteeing. The BMW he drove to Thanksgiving? Bought with bonus money from profits generated using my financial backing. The addition they'd built on the house last summer? Funded by home equity that only existed because the business stayed solvent. My financial guarantee had literally saved everything he was bragging about. And he just called me a non-contributor. I set down my fork. Put my napkin on the table. Smiled at my father. You're absolutely right, Dad. He blinked, surprised I was speaking. I don't contribute, I continued calmly. Not like you. Not like Marcus and Caroline. You built something real. I respect that. Mom looked relieved. See, Richard? She understands. I do understand, I said. Completely. I stood up. Thank you for dinner. It was lovely. I'm going to head out early. Busy day tomorrow. On Black Friday? Caroline laughed. What office is open? Mine, I said simply. I hugged Mom, waved to the table and walked out. Got in my Tesla. Drove home. And made a decision. Friday morning, November 29, 2024. I woke up at 6 a.m. Made coffee. Opened my laptop. Reviewed Thompson Manufacturing's current financials one more time. The credit line I'd guaranteed had been essential to their operations for 26 months. They'd drawn $5.8 million of the $6.2 million available. Used it for equipment purchases, inventory, expansion costs, payroll during slow periods. Without it, they'd have closed in 2022. With it, they'd thrived. But here's what Dad didn't understand about finance. Credit lines aren't permanent. Guarantees aren't forever. Relationships are built on mutual respect. And I was done being disrespected. At 9:15 a.m. I called my financial advisor, Patricia Gomez. Patricia, it's Rebecca. Happy Thanksgiving weekend. What's up? I need you to execute something immediately. The personal guarantee I'm holding on the Thompson Manufacturing credit line. I want it withdrawn. Today. Silence on the other end. Rebecca, are you sure? That's a $6.2 million facility. If you pull the guarantee, the bank will demand immediate restructuring. Thompson Manufacturing could face serious liquidity issues. I'm aware. This is your father's company. I'm very aware. More silence. Okay, Patricia said carefully. This is your decision. But I need to be clear about consequences. The bank will require Thompson Manufacturing to either replace the guarantee with equivalent collateral, pay down the outstanding balance, or accept significantly higher interest rates and restrictions. I understand completely. And you want this done today? The Friday after Thanksgiving? Yes. May I ask why the urgency? I thought about my father's speech. About being called a non-contributor at a table full of relatives. About 27 years of being invisible. Let's just say I'm reallocating my resources to people who appreciate them. Understood. Give me 3 hours. I'll coordinate with James Morrison at Midwest Commercial. This will be official by 1 p.m. Perfect. Thank you, Patricia. I hung up, poured another coffee, and waited. At 1:47 p.m. my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Hello. Rebecca. A man's voice, panicked, nearly shouting. This is Doug Hendricks. I'm the senior accountant at Thompson Manufacturing. I need to speak with your father immediately. Do you have his cell number? He's my father, Doug. I assume you have his number. He's not answering. Nobody's answering. It's an emergency. What kind of emergency? The bank just called. Our entire credit line, the whole $6.2 million facility, it's been frozen. The guarantee was withdrawn. They're demanding we either replace it with equivalent collateral or pay down $5.8 million within 30 days, or they're calling the entire loan. I sipped my coffee. That sounds serious. Serious? Rebecca, this could destroy the company. We have $340,000 in payroll due next week. We have vendor payments, equipment leases, operating expenses. Everything runs on that credit line. Without it, we can't function. Have you tried calling Dad? He's at some golf thing with Marcus. I've called 12 times. I've called Caroline. Nobody's responding. I'm about to have a heart attack. I'm sure they'll call you back soon, Doug. This is a catastrophe. Who would withdraw a guarantee like this? On Black Friday? With no warning? What kind of person does that? Someone who's reallocating their resources, I said calmly. What? Nothing. I'm sure Dad will handle it when he calls you back. He's very good at handling business challenges. Rebecca, if you talk to him, tell him to call me immediately. This is not a drill. This is a company-ending emergency. I'll mention it if I see him. I hung up. Doug called Dad 17 more times that afternoon. Dad called me at 6:32 p.m. Rebecca, did Doug Hendricks call you? Yes. What did he say? Something about the credit line being frozen. He sounded stressed. Stressed? Stressed? Rebecca, this is a disaster. Someone withdrew the guarantee on our operating credit. The bank is threatening to call the loan. We could lose everything. That's terrible, Dad. We're trying to figure out who the guarantor even was. The bank won't tell us. Some confidential third-party arrangement. But whoever it was just destroyed us. I said nothing. We have 30 days to come up with $5.8 million or provide equivalent collateral. Rebecca, we don't have that. The business is strong, but all our capital is in operations. I've pledged everything I own. Marcus and Caroline have their savings tied up. We're scrambling. Sounds complicated. Complicated? It's a nightmare. 26 months ago, this credit line saved us. Some angel investor or institutional guarantee. We never knew who. And now they're just pulling it. No warning. No explanation. Maybe they had their reasons. Reasons? What possible reason justifies destroying a family business? Putting 73 employees at risk. I thought about Thanksgiving dinner. Maybe they felt unappreciated, I said quietly. What? Nothing. I hope you figure it out, Dad. We will. You have to. I've got calls into every bank in the region. Emergency meetings scheduled. We'll find replacement financing. I'm sure you will. You're a real entrepreneur. You build things. Dad paused. Rebecca, you sound strange. Are you okay? I'm great, Dad. Actually, I'm perfect. You have a good night. I hung up, turned off my phone, and slept better than I had in years. Over the next 2 weeks, Thompson Manufacturing entered crisis mode. Dad called emergency meetings with every financial institution in the state, begged for replacement financing, offered higher interest rates, personal guarantees, equity stakes, anything. Every bank said the same thing. Mr. Thompson, your debt-to-income ratio is critical. You're overextended. We can't justify the risk. Marcus suggested selling equipment to raise cash. But the equipment was pledged as collateral on other loans. Caroline proposed delaying vendor payments. But vendors were already on net 60 terms and threatening to halt shipments. Doug, the accountant, worked 18-hour days trying to find creative solutions. Nothing worked. Because the fundamental problem wasn't solvable in 30 days. Thompson Manufacturing had built its entire operation around that $6.2 million credit line. Without it, they couldn't function. On December 10th, James Morrison from Midwest Commercial called me. Rebecca, I need to give you a heads up. Your father's coming in tomorrow with his attorney. They're demanding to know who withdrew the guarantee. You can't tell them. I know. Client confidentiality is absolute. But he's threatening legal action. Claiming damages. It's getting ugly. Let it get ugly. Rebecca, I have to ask. Are you sure about this? Thompson Manufacturing might actually fold. Your father could lose everything. He made his choices, James. He doesn't even know you were the one helping him. Exactly. James sighed. All right. Just wanted you to know what's coming. Thank you for the heads up. I hung up. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. Text from Mom. Rebecca, your father is very stressed about work. Maybe call him. He could use family support right now. I didn't respond. December 14th, 2024. I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant buzzed. Rebecca, there's a Richard Thompson here to see you. Says he's your father. He doesn't have an appointment, but he's quite insistent. My stomach tightened. Send him in. Dad walked into my office looking like he'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. Wrinkled shirt. Tie loose. Eyes exhausted. He stopped when he saw my office. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The mahogany desk. The wall of awards and certifications. The Bloomberg terminal in the corner. What is this? He asked. My office. This is. I thought you did administrative work. I'm a senior partner at Morrison Chin Investment Group. I manage $127 million in assets. Have a seat, Dad. He sat slowly, looking around like he'd entered a different dimension. I don't understand. What don't you understand? This. I thought you worked in, I don't know, filing, office stuff. You thought that because you never asked. He blinked. Rebecca, I'm here because I'm desperate. Thompson Manufacturing is dying. We have 1 week left before the bank calls our loan. I've tried everything. Every bank. Every investor. Nobody will help. That's unfortunate. I'm asking, could you maybe help? Do you know any investors through your work? People who might be interested in manufacturing? Any connections? I leaned back in my chair. Looked at this man who raised me, dismissed me, ignored me for 27 years. I might know someone, I said. His face lit up with hope. Really? Rebecca, if you could just make an introduction, I'd be so grateful. We're talking about saving 73 jobs. Your brother's career. Your sister's livelihood. The family legacy. The family legacy, I repeated. Yes. Everything I built. Everything that matters. I opened my desk drawer. Pulled out a folder. Slid it across to him. What's this? He asked. Open it. He opened the folder. Inside were the documents from September 2022. The personal guarantee agreement. The credit facility terms. The confidential third-party arrangement. All with my signature. Dad's hands started shaking as he read. This says you. Rebecca, this says you personally guaranteed our credit line. For $6.2 million. This can't be real. It's real. But how? You don't have this kind of money. You can't possibly. I manage $127 million in assets, Dad. I have a personal net worth of $8.3 million. The bank considered me an excellent guarantee. His face went pale. You saved the company? 26 months ago, yes. Why didn't you tell me? You never asked what I did for a living. You assumed I was a secretary or a filing clerk or whatever let you feel superior. I never. Rebecca, I didn't mean. At Thanksgiving you told 37 relatives that I contribute nothing. That I'm not a real entrepreneur. That the world needs administrative workers too. I was just making conversation. I didn't know. You didn't know because you never cared to know. He stared at the documents. If you guaranteed the credit line, then you're the one who withdrew it. Yes. Why would you destroy your own family's business? I didn't destroy it, Dad. I created it. For 26 months, I was the silent foundation keeping Thompson Manufacturing alive. You used my guarantee to buy equipment, expand operations, give yourself bonuses. You built your legacy on my money. Rebecca, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. You had every opportunity to know. Every Sunday dinner. Every holiday. Every phone call. You could have asked, what exactly do you do? You never did. Please. Please put the guarantee back. I'll tell everyone. I'll make it right. I'll announce at Christmas that you saved the company. I don't want announcements, Dad. Then what do you want? I thought about that question. About 27 years of being invisible. About building a career while my family assumed I was failing. About betting $6.2 million on people who would never bet on me. I want you to save your company yourself, I said. The way you always claimed you built it. With your own hard work. Your own vision. Your own resources. Rebecca, we can't. We've tried everything. Without that credit line. Then maybe you should have thought about that before calling your daughter a non-contributor in front of the entire family. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to dismiss me. Ignore me. Treat my success like it didn't exist. So I'm making a choice too. I'm choosing to invest my resources in people who value them. We're your family. Are you? Because family tends to know what each other does for a living. Family tends to show basic respect. Family doesn't mock their children at Thanksgiving dinner. Dad put his head in his hands. What do you want me to do? Figure it out. You're a real entrepreneur, remember? You build things. You take risks. You create value. Do that. Without the credit line, the company dies in 7 days. Then I guess you have 7 days to work a miracle. He looked up at me, tears in his eyes. You're going to let it all collapse? Everything I built. Everything Debbie built, I corrected. You just didn't realize I was the foundation. I stood up. This meeting is over, Dad. I have a 3 p.m. call with some actual investors. People who value my expertise. He stood slowly, clutching the folder. Rebecca, please. Close the door on your way out. He walked to the door. Stopped. Turned back. For what it's worth. I'm proud of you. What you've accomplished. I wish I'd known. You could have, I said. You just had to ask. He left. I sat at my desk and stared at the city skyline. My phone buzzed. Text from Patricia. James at Midwest Commercial says Thompson Manufacturing requested a meeting with you directly. Want me to decline? I thought about it. About 73 employees who'd done nothing wrong. About Doug the accountant who'd worked himself sick trying to save the company. About the fact that, despite everything, I didn't actually want to watch it burn. I texted back, schedule it for Friday, 2 p.m. But make it clear, this is a business meeting, not a family meeting. Friday, December 20th. Dad arrived at my office at 1:55 p.m. with Marcus, Caroline, and a corporate attorney named Stephen Walsh. They all looked stunned by my office. Have a seat, I said. They sat. Stephen Walsh opened his briefcase. Ms. Thompson, we're here to discuss the credit facility situation. We understand you were the guarantor and we'd like to negotiate terms for reinstating. No, I said. Everyone stopped. No. Stephen repeated. I'm not reinstating the guarantee. That arrangement is over. Dad leaned forward. Rebecca, please. I held up my hand. However, I'm willing to discuss an alternative arrangement. Stephen perked up. What kind of arrangement? Thompson Manufacturing needs capital. I have capital. We can structure a deal. But not as a silent guarantee. As an actual investment with terms. Marcus frowned. What kind of terms? I slid a document across the table. I'm offering to invest $6.5 million directly into Thompson Manufacturing. Enough to pay off the current debt and provide working capital for expansion. In exchange, I receive 49% equity in the company, a seat on the board and final approval on all major financial decisions. The room went silent. 49%? Caroline said. That's almost half the company. That's the offer. Dad stared at the document. I built this company for 40 years. You want me to give you half? I want you to give me appropriate compensation for the capital I'm providing. This is business, Dad. Not charity. But the family will retain 51%. You'll still have controlling interest. But I'll have enough equity to ensure my investment is protected. Stephen reviewed the terms. These are actually quite fair. Better than most venture capital deals. The valuation is generous to Thompson Manufacturing. Because I'm not trying to destroy the company, I said. I'm trying to save it properly. With transparency. With respect. Marcus looked at Dad. We should consider this. Caroline nodded. It's better than bankruptcy. Dad sat there, decades of pride wrestling with reality. If I accept this, he said slowly, everyone will know. The whole family. The industry. Everyone will know I needed my daughter to save the business. Yes, I said. They will. I'll look like a failure. Or you'll look like a smart businessman who recognized when he needed help and where to find it. He closed his eyes. I'm sorry, Rebecca. For Thanksgiving. For everything before that. For not seeing you. I know. Does this deal make us even? I thought about that. This deal makes us partners. Even is something you'll have to earn. He opened his eyes. Looked at the document again. Where do I sign? June 2025. Thompson Manufacturing's quarterly board meeting took place in the new conference room I'd insisted we build. Dad sat at the head of the table. Marcus to his right. Caroline to his left. And me across from him with my nameplate reading. Rebecca Thompson, board member and chief financial officer. Doug the accountant presented Q2 financials. Revenue, $21.4 million. Up 19% year-over-year. Profit margins, 31%. Best in company history. New contracts. 7 major deals in the pipeline. Outstanding work, team, Dad said. After the meeting he pulled me aside. Rebecca, I wanted to tell you something. Last week I was at an industry conference. Someone asked me about Thompson Manufacturing's turnaround. How we went from crisis to thriving in 6 months. What did you say? I told them the truth. That my daughter, who I'd spent 27 years underestimating, turned out to be one of the sharpest financial minds I've ever met. That she saved the company I almost destroyed. And that I'm learning more about business from her than I ever thought possible. How did that feel? Humbling. But honest. He paused. Your mom wants to host a family dinner next month. Properly introduce everyone to who you actually are. Would you come? I considered it. On one condition. Anything. You introduce me accurately. Not as your daughter who does office work. As Rebecca Thompson, CFO of Thompson Manufacturing, senior partner at Morrison Investment Group, and the person who believed in this company when nobody else would. Dad smiled. Deal. I returned to my office downtown that evening. Patricia had left a note on my desk. New client wants to discuss a $15 million investment opportunity. Called you, the best financial strategist under 30 in the Midwest. Meeting Monday 9 a.m. I smiled. Because I'd spent 27 years being invisible. But I'd used that invisibility to build something they never saw coming. My phone buzzed. Text from Dad. Dinner Sunday? Mom's making your favorite. She's very proud, by the way. We all are. I texted back. See you at 6. Because forgiveness isn't immediate. But it's possible. When people finally start seeing you for who you actually are.